Shabbat Shalom. I'm Rabbi Robert Barr, and I'm pleased that you're joining me and each other for this streaming Shabbat service. We're living in difficult, challenging times, and this is a moment for us to pause, to catch our breath, to focus on what is most important in our lives. So let the Sabbath be a time for believing in what could be and seeing with new eyes. In this serious world, let us take ourselves less seriously. In these harsh times, let's listen for a soothing word. While the world around us unfolds in an instant, let us judge each other a little more slowly. Let the Sabbath shine a light into a corner of ourselves where hope is renewed. Let us remember a reason to be joyful and a way to be gentle. Let the Sabbath be a time for opening up. Let us find strength in our dreams and trust in our strength. Again, I'm Rabbi Robert Barr of Congregation Beth Adam. That's our bricks and mortar congregation here in Greater Cincinnati and our Jewish community, our online congregation. We've been online and streaming services for over a decade. It's been an opportunity for us to connect with people around the world. And now with the pandemic, streaming services have become even more important. It's allowed people within our own community to connect because we are socially distanced from one another. While we sit in our homes by ourselves, being online and streaming services allows us to know that we're part of something larger than ourselves. We're part of a community, and that you're participating with us tonight, you're part of that community as well. And it's a community of people who embrace a bold, dynamic Judaism. That's what we've been giving expression to here at Congregation Beth Adam for 40 years. A Judaism that, while we recognize and respect our ancestors, we recognize that they created a Judaism that was reflective of who they were and what they valued. We have different experiences. We have new knowledge, and it's incumbent upon us to create a Judaism just like they did that's reflective of who we are and what we value, because our responsibility isn't to our ancestors, it is to our descendants. We need to give to them the best that we have to offer. And so I'm glad you're joining us for this service and experiencing a bold, dynamic Judaism. Now, I know people can chat and do chat during services. We encourage that. Please, as you're chatting, let us know where you're participating from. And I know as well that many people watch our services in the archives. They can't watch it at 6 o'clock Eastern time because of schedules and time zones. People pick and choose when it's most convenient, and that's great too. We want to be available and here when you're able to join us. So whenever you join us, you're part of our community, and I'm so pleased that you can be part of this with me tonight. Now we continue our service with the lighting of the Shabbat candles. Night seeps up from the ground. Light falls from the stars, distant, icy, ancient beyond all who came before. But the light of the Sabbath is warm. The light of the Sabbath is ours. The light of the Sabbath is of this time, of this place, of lives that know the past only in a dream. As we kindle these lights, we create a place of warmth. As we kindle these lights, we welcome this time for reflection. As we kindle these lights, we stake our claim. And while these lights burn, this time is ours. Baruch ha'or ba'olam, blessed is the light within the world. Baruch ha'or ba'adam, blessed is the light within each person. Baruch ha'or ba'shabbat, blessed is the light of the Sabbath. So last week I was having lots of problems lighting these candles, and I'm hoping I got it fixed. I hope I did it. I did it. Wonderful. It's a real pleasure for me to have Ana England joining us tonight for a conversation about art, specifically Ana's art, the kind of work she does. But before we delve into your specific art, Ana, would you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and where you are right now? If you can tell us all that, that'd be great.
Okay. Well, this is a great honor to be able to speak with you, Rabbi Barr, and the congregation. So I've been in Cincinnati for quite some time. I came here from California, and I came here to work at Northern Kentucky University, where I ran the ceramics department. And I live in the country on 45 acres of land with my husband and 2 dogs, 2 cats, and all the other forest creatures. A cat in the background.
So we know it's a Zoom call because there's an animal wandering around during it.
Right. But, you know, I was raised by, my father was a theoretical physicist.
Really?
Yeah. So when I did visit Bethadom and walked in and saw that picture of Albert Einstein on the wall, I felt very comfortable. And because we had a painting of Albert Einstein on our wall too when I was growing up. It was by my mother. So, you know, I was raised by a physicist, and all the friends, our family friends, were all scientists. And I really caught their fever for, you know, for research. And also what scientists are trying to do is understand the nature of reality and the structure of the universe. And I'm also interested in those things, but I decided to pursue it through art.
What was your parents' response for a theoretical physicist to say, I'm going to do art? Were they shocked? Were they?
Well, you know, it was a roundabout thing. I actually have my first degrees in political science.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. But no, both my parents loved art. And so, especially my mother, I think, was really happy. And I've worked with scientists, too, on trying to sort of show their work physically.
Well, in a minute, we're going to show a couple of your pieces. We're going to try to do something, as I said when we started, I've never done this before, trying to incorporate, as we're recording a Zoom, some of your work. But what role do you think art plays in society? Why is it important? You know, you were a professor, you taught art, sculpture, ceramics at university. Why is that important for society? I think lots of people oftentimes think, oh, that's arts. It's a nice to have, but it's not a necessity.
Yeah, well, for me, obviously, it is a necessity. And I think it is for we as humans also. I think for a couple of reasons. One is that most of our lives are perceived sort of in a linear way. And we collect data and statistics and mathematical equations and all this. But there's more to life than just that linear way of going. And art is a more non-linear process. Mm-hmm. And I think when we encounter art, if it's strong art and it's the art we need to see, it can enter us through different portals. It can get around maybe our individual armor and hit us. And I think most of us who love art have had that kind of experience when maybe we're going through a museum, you know, we're looking at this and that, and then we turn the corner and something just hits us. Mm-hmm. And it gets to us not through reason or anything else, but some other way. And I think it enlarges our view of the world and of our place in the world and in society. I think of it as kind of being subversive. Really.
Well, certainly there is subversive art, and there have been, you know, that really challenges people to reimagine who they are and what's happening around them. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think that challenge is important. Sometimes it just is something that is soothing to us in times of need. Mm-hmm. Like I find when things are really chaotic in society, I turn to poetry, which I normally don't do. Mm-hmm. So I think that works. You know, after 9/11, when we were all in that bereavement stage, I was talking to some friends who are not artists. And I said, you know, when things like this happen, I go to my studio and that helps me work through things. And I said to them, where do you go? And they said, we go to the museums. We go to the museums.
So interesting. So you help create that which allows a lot of us who aren't artistic to sort of process complex issues and tragedy or joyful events as well.
Exactly.
And re-seeing the world. Well, what I want to do is I'm going to try to pull up some of your images and say that you can talk about them, because as an artist, you know, talking about art is different than creating it. So we're going to pull up some of the images that you did. For those of you who are watching, this is a first for me. So if I think I can do this correctly. So if you could see the image.
I can see the image.
Great. Okay. So you sent this to me, and it was like, wow. This did give me pause, and I fascinated by it. So could you talk a little bit about it and what inspired you to do this? And
so I did this quite a while ago, and it's called Self-Portrait with Ancestors. It's about 6 feet tall, a little over 6 feet tall, which I am not, but I feel like it sometimes. But it's basically, it's 900 porcelain bones. So I made them out of clay and attached them to this figure, which is actually carved out of styrofoam. And, you know, my idea was that all animals are my ancestors. You know, not just my parents, but every other creature on the earth is also part of my ancestry. And so I started out making bones. People would give me bones and I would make them. And then I realized there's a logic to bones that's true for whether you're a deer or whether you're a mouse. And I could just make my own bones from there. So it was just my way of acknowledging my ancestry.
Oh, so interesting. And I should note, just because you were at Beth Adam, you mentioned our Einstein sculpture. I know you were at Beth Adam in the evening. One of the 12 stained glass windows, or 4 of the 12 stained glass windows, is about evolution. Because the reality we talk about at Beth Adam, you know, we talk about science. That, you know, the Big Bang was that event that's 14.5 billion years ago, and slowly, naturally, we all evolved, and that our ancestors, we tend to think of them only as human, but the reality is we evolved out of animals. So that's striking. When you said, what do you call this piece again?
Self-Portrait with Ancestors. With
ancestors, and because I saw there's what looks like a skull to me, and it looked like more like a bird skull than a human skull. It's like, okay, and it's interesting. It makes me think about my ancestry differently. Yeah,
we could all go back to just cells as our ancestors.
Sure. Well, fascinating. And then you said this is the other one.
Okay, so this is hard to see on here, but it's actually a hemisphere that goes back to the wall, like a half sphere. And so this is called C, and it's just all the different eyes of all different kinds of animals. And so you might see the middle one is an elephant. Down here is a turkey eye. There's my husband's eye. There's all different kinds of reptiles and mammals and birds.
Is this is this a ceramic piece?
Ceramic piece. Right, it's all ceramic. So ceramic tiles that are affixed to a 3-dimensional form. And so I looked at, they're really very accurate to the various species that they are. And so I often take things that we all share, some strategy of living that we all share, and many animals share vision as a strategy for living. And I wanted to show how we were both the same and different. So I often do that in my art, where I'll take something that we all share and show the individual differences, but how altogether we're all related, we're all kin to each other.
Connected to nature. Interesting. And then just as a technique, so these are, this is all glaze that we're seeing, it's the colors?
So it's all like multiple firings and glazing that are then when I finish it, I glue them on.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, for me, this was really striking, seeing all these eyes staring back at me.
It's a popular piece.
What?
It was a popular piece. It was at the museum, and it was probably the favorite piece because both children and adults, I think, can get something from it.
Sure.
You know.
Interesting. And then this piece here, really very different than the other ones, I think, in the sense it took me a bit longer when I was to understand exactly what it was, or at least what I think it is. So
basically, they're boxes, like little ceramic boxes. No, they're not small. They're about this big each one. So the whole thing is maybe 5.5 feet. And my idea for this was to start showing how we're related to natural forces, that we are not separate from the natural forces. And this came when I was doing a piece and I was looking at the electrical aura around the earth and how it looked a lot like my fingerprints. So on on one side are all fingerprints that were carved in clay. And on the other side, they're paired with natural forces. So at the top, you're going to see this, a wave, and it's paired with my thumbprint. And then the next one is a galaxy, and it's paired with my husband's thumbprint. And then you go down to a hurricane, and then below that, growth rings, and then magnetic field. And each one is related to a thumbprint that I took from a friend or a student or somebody like that, just to show where we came from, that we can actually see that we are related to the larger cosmos, like our atoms are like little solar systems. And what I do is I try to look for clues as to how the universe is related, how it is structured. And I find that in our bodies, in our art, like you'll see spirals and concentric circles, all in art from thousands of years ago. And these are clues as to where we come from.
It's fascinating because, you know, I mean, yes, I mean, the fingerprints is, I mean, that it took me a second. I began to realize, but knowing that the other side are other natural elements or, you know, events, if you will, that create patterns. It's a really interesting dialogue. And I think, too, for me, as somebody who spends time in different religious places, certainly when I travel, I go and I look, you know, oftentimes, historically, religious art was about the separation of human beings from certainly God. You know, there's images of you know, the Sistine Chapel and that images of being created separately. What I like about your work, it from my perspective, it has a very humanistic, scientific approach to it, where it's the bringing together that we see our relationship to nature versus our distance from it.
You know, I was thinking about this a lot, and it seems like in order to survive when we were not so many people, we had to separate ourselves from nature to do that. But it seems like now that there are so many of us and we have such a big impact that we have to now go back to our relationship with nature, or our species is at peril, and so are other species. It's like we have to do the opposite now. We have to understand that we are embedded in this network of relationships. And if we don't understand that, then our species is in danger, I think.
Wow. Fascinating. It's wonderful. Thank you. I'm glad I was able to figure that. And I love this one. I have to say, when I saw this, I just went, because everyone should always be all ears.
That's right. Well, it's behind me on the wall, if you can see.
Yeah, I thought it was the same piece when we logged on together. I think I recognize that.
So these are ears, but they're ears of all different kinds of primates. So half of them are human, half of them are other kinds of primates. And I often do this to show our relationship with others, to put the human back in, that we are not really separate from primates. So if you look at this, you might be able to tell some of them are different. The one up here is a gorilla.
So when you say like upper left or upper right?
Well, the upper left of the piece.
Okay.
And there's a baby bonobo, and you know there's what else do I have in there? Orangutan. So if you look at if you start at the far left and then go, there's a baby bonobo and a baby orangutan and a chimpanzee, all in a conversation together. I think of it as a nonlinear conversation with other primates. Again, showing how our ears are very similar, but different.
Interesting. I'm going to bring us back together so we can be full screen for a moment. Because one of the questions I'm wondering about is how do people respond? Are there people who respond negatively, I guess, because you're really clearly talking about human beings evolve out of nature, and you taught in Kentucky, and you and I both know that not too far from NKU and where I'm sitting right now is the Creation Museum, and there is a world of people who want to deny science, and you're using art to connect, to talk about science in a very interesting way. Are there people who had negative responses to what you've done as a function of that?
You know, I worry about that sometimes because I'm aware that, especially in this part of the country, that's talking about evolution is like still kind of a extreme position for some people. But frankly, personally, I have not run into that. And it surprised me. I think art students in general tend to be more open. Mm-hmm. And I think because I'm not lecturing them on science, I'm just showing these examples that they don't feel threatened. I had a show at the museum a few years ago called Kinship, and I had all these pieces there. And I think the response was overwhelmingly positive. I think mm-hmm. it made people feel better to know that we're part of something. And I've never used the word evolution.
Okay.
Because that seems to be something that can turn people off. But I think, again, when we're talking about the difference, say, between maybe scientific theories and art, is I can slip this stuff in there without them putting up defenses.
Got it. That's so interesting. And I asked you about the role of art in society. I know right now with lots of schools, they're pulling back art and art education. Why do you think that's important, or do you think that's important, that children get art education?
I think it's critical. I think it's totally critical. I think the whole thing on STEM is going in the wrong direction. You know, the arts, we say, put the arts in there, we have STEAM.
Right.
You know, children are naturally creative, and they make those, you know, try to stop somebody from drawing and painting when they're a little kid. They love that stuff. Mm-hmm. They love clay. They understand that connection, and we sort of beat it out of them over the years, to our detriment. I think that art gives them a way to express themselves that they can't find in any other way. And do we want to take that out of them? It also makes you think outside the box. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of what I taught when I was a teacher wasn't just about art. It was about, okay, you have this problem, how do you solve it? Mm-hmm. And you have to take personal responsibility, you know, for every mark that you make, and that's taught there. And really, our students who graduated from college, they're problem solvers. You know, they don't think you have to do this, this, and this. They think, oh, we can go over here and do it this way. So I think that's really important. But I think for children, particularly, that expression is just crucial for their emotional growth.
That's so interesting. I mean, your approach to art, I mean, I really appreciate you taking the time. It's so interesting to me. Your approach to art, the sort of the science that's embedded in it, and getting us to think about the idea that it's art also helps us to think differently.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, think of it this way: if you saw a painting in a museum or a sculpture, and then you walk down the road, you might see shadows differently. You might stop to look at some color that looked like a color you saw in the museum and find out it's an incredible beetle. And so I think there's something about art that creates a stillness that leads, all that chatter just sort of leaves you for a second, and you feel things in such a different way.
That's so interesting. I so appreciate your time. As somebody who was never, and I guess this is one of the problems of your teachers, you don't draw well enough. You don't color within the line. So I don't think of myself as artistic, though I love taking pictures. And some people have liked my juxtaposition of objects, but it was always the art that you had to create something. I mean, I look at what you created, and it's like amazing. It's both the artistic ability, but also the technical ability to take what you see and then transfer it so that we can see what you see. I think that's an amazing ability.
Well, you know, and I think what you just said, like, you know, about drawing and things like that, that is what bad teachers do to us. Right. We don't want that. And
well, I won't say their names, the ones who
there's a lot out there. But, you know, I didn't do art in high school or college or elementary school either. It's not necessary. We're all very creative beings, and that can be pulled out of us, or with a good teacher that doesn't. I remember my sister first went to first grade, and she drew a flower with a blue stem, and the teacher scribbled that out because it wasn't right. That's the wrong approach. We should have a more open approach, I think, to education.
Well, thank you, because I think thank you for sharing with us, and certainly from my perspective and what we've been creating at Congregation Beth Adam, where we did use art in our rendering of our stained glass windows. To have the Big Bang evolution in science was using art in a way to be in conversation. And to see the world through that lens. And what you're doing is amazing work. I really love it. And I appreciate you taking the time to share your expertise, your experience, and your artistic vision with us.
Well, my husband and I did a show together years ago called Creation Stories.
Oh, really?
And in it, he did 7 days of creation loosely based on Genesis.
Okay.
And I did creation based on science. It was the Big Bang, creation of molecules, creation of atoms, and all that kind of stuff. So, I love dealing with those subjects. I
want to see that. I would like to see pictures of that. That would be wonderful. So, Ana, thanks so much. I appreciate you taking the time. Now we continue our service with the sharing of a virtual challah and why. It's an affirmation that we are part of a community. So if you have some bread, some crackers, whatever, join me. From the earth, a seed harbored in darkness, from heat and cold and wet and dry to wind and air and rain. Golden ground, flour from wheat, with water and yeast active and alive. Always something saved. From the earth, sweetness and salt. From nature tamed, oil and eggs. Mixed and rested in darkness and warmth, kneaded smooth, made right by touch. Hands that want, hands that shape, mouths that want. From the earth, our challah, our warmth. Baruch hamal kapenu, blessed is the work of our hands. Baruch hazon ha'adam, blessed is the vision of our minds. Baruch lechem ha'aretz, blessed is the bread of the earth. And then if you have some wine or some juice, join with me. We lift the cup together as a tribute to our past, as a blessing for the future. May the allure of its untold flavors beckon us forever to keep uncovering new branches, new roots that hold us together. Tonight, as we welcome the Shabbat, may we find time to spend in our own quiet company and listen to the calling of our hearts. Bruchim chachayim ba'olam, blessed is the life within the world. Bruchim chachayim ba'adam, blessed is the life within each person. And we say, l'chaim, to life. So I'm pleased we were able to share this Shabbat together. And I hope you consider joining me and each other again next Shabbat and for the Shabbats to come. You can always go to bethadam.org and there find upcoming events, listen to my podcast. If you haven't, you can listen to the sermon that I gave for Martin Luther King at Zion Baptist Church. But that is always the best place to go, bethadam.org. You can also listen to my podcast there. So I'm glad you're here, that we were able to share this Shabbat service. Please let your friends know what we're doing. We've grown as a community through word of mouth, and you can help us continue to grow because there are people who are looking for a different voice of Judaism, and you found it here. So we end with the words we end with each week. May we know blessings, those who are near. May we know blessings, those who are far. And may the Sabbath bring its goodness to everyone soon, wherever they are. Shabbat Shalom.